is a spiritual deity. Freedom and liberty and justice shall fight for you. When you fight for freedom with all your soul, take it from me. This is Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB, the voice of the nation, the voice.
This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.
Okay, welcome to BCB, Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. This is Rosama, and we are now engaged in one of our special series of conversations. I'm here today with two brothers who are leaders in the Biafra restoration movement. I'm going to have a conversation with them about the state of things in Biafra land and also in relation to Nigeria, how we move forward, what is happening to our people right now. But before we do that, I hope that you will all listen to us with open minds. If you have questions, please email us or like us on Facebook, like us on YouTube. But more importantly is that you listen to what our people, our leaders have to say about the current status of things at home. That is important. And you make decisions that will help us change our current situation because it cannot continue indefinitely. My dear brothers, I welcome you. I will give you a few minutes to introduce yourselves, and then we will start this conversation. Okay. Brother Ude.
Thank you very much, Rose, and welcome everyone wherever you're listening from. My name is Ude Christian Iwagu. Thank you, and keep listening to BCB.
Thank you. Brother Tony.
Thank you, Rose. It's a real pleasure to be with you tonight. It's a great idea for this conversation. I am Tony Nwisi, to Washington, D.C., and I'm looking forward to tonight's conversation. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And I am really happy that both of you have agreed to have a conversation with me, because this is just simply a wonderful opportunity to find out what each one of you is doing and how, you see the state of things in Biafra today and how we move forward. So let me start by asking a question that's been nagging me, and it is also on the minds of, a lot of people, listeners, people at home. What do you see as the challenges, some of the challenges Biafrans face right now? Why don't we start with Tony?
Thank you, Rose. Again, I want to thank you for facilitating tonight's conversation, and I'm really, really delighted to be sharing the time with my brother Ude tonight. I'm sure we're going to have a good conversation. I'm sure audience will benefit from this. So the challenge, in response to your question, what is a challenge Biafrans are facing? I think in my mind, more than ever before, the challenge we face is that of leadership. The challenge of leadership beyond our erstwhile leader, Emeka Ojukwu. Biafra has never really had a major figure, a major charismatic figure, well accepted, well respected, consistent in character, like Colonel Emeka Ojukwu. Of course, Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, God bless him, has done a fantastic job of promoting the Biafra cause has, brought it to the attention of the world. And he has done his best. IPOB has done very, very good work, and Nnamdi Kanu will forever be written in the footnotes of the Biafran people, in the history is written. But we haven't had the kind of leadership that we had under Ojukwu. So I think that's where the biggest challenge is. It is not for lack of trying. And I think as we continue to do, we might not have the same kind of leadership, but we're going to keep working on it and tweaking it until we get better at it. So I think leadership is the biggest challenge that I think the Biafran people have at this point in time. Thanks very much.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, Brother Ude, what say you? I'm going to come back to that question of leadership, but let's hear from Brother Ude.
Okay, thank you very much, Rose. I believe these discussions and conversations are very, very good and informative to all our people. I'm putting it in perspective in relation to the agitation for the restoration of the independent state of Biafra. I want to quickly say that anyone who is involved in any way, shape, or form in the agitation for freedom is doing the right thing. Because Biafrans deserve to be free. We have continued to suffer under very stifling conditions in Nigeria. Until date, it is even very clear to the blind that we cannot continue to be part of Nigeria. We need to liberate ourselves, to have our own homeland, and to be a free people, to aspire to those aspirations and those heights that we know that we are capable of. Having said that, there have been lots of challenges in terms of actually moving the struggle forward and getting to our destination, which is exiting from Nigeria and becoming a successful free nation. For me, the key thing, or one of the challenges holding the struggle back, is that of unity of purpose, having one mind to pursue that goal, knowing fully well that it is a just cause. And if we all put our heads together, put our minds together, and work towards that goal, I believe that it is achievable. And not only achievable, we've got the resources and the manpower to be able to create within record time a formidable nation, a developed nation that will stand tall within the community of nations and bring back all millions of our brothers and sisters who are suffering in various countries, seeking asylum, doing odd jobs, dying in the Mediterranean and dying in the deserts, trying to get to pastures green. Based on what God has endowed us with, we shouldn't be doing that. No Biafran, no Igbo man should die in the Mediterranean or be subjected to inhumane treatments as they flee Nigeria looking for better life and greener pastures. So if we overcome that challenge of unity, coming together, trusting each other, working together, I don't think there's any mountain too high. Okay. There's no valley too deep in terms of achieving our goal of restoring Biafra.
Okay. Both of you have given me a lot to think about, and thank you for your comments. Brother Tony says leadership, and Brother Ude, you point at the lack of unity of purpose and having one mind. And it seems to me that both are really connected. Tony's observation is that we haven't had a leader that is as charismatic as Ojukwu, but he also acknowledges that, we may not have one as charismatic as Ojukwu. Other people listening, hopefully who would listen to this or who are watching us would say, that we do have a problem. Both of you are equally right in many ways. When you think about the so many fragmented people, groups emerging, claiming, everybody is trying to claim leadership. Everybody is trying to claim to be a leader. You're talking about, having unity of purpose. So how do we do this under this condition where there are so many groups jousting for what would constitute leadership? And at the same time, how do we do that and pull everybody back to this idea of having a united purpose? You're both absolutely right. How are we going to do this? So I am going to start with Brother Ude, since you went last.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me quickly add that I also do agree with Brother Tony's point. Leadership is a challenge as well. I totally agree with that. And the situation with our leader, Ojukwu, was very unique in that he was a military leader. He was already the military administrator of the Eastern region, had control, had resources, had some fighting men behind him. So he was uniquely positioned to play that role. There were so many other leaders beneath him or around him who played really key roles, but he was the figure that people were seeing. And he was a military personnel, but there were incredibly good leaders around him, both civilian and non-civilian, we must add, So, and I don't think Biafrans lack leadership, lack leaders. We have potentially, we have very good leaders, but because of the situation on ground, a lot of our good people maybe have gone into exile or in diaspora, or if they're at home, they've remained quiet because the arena is littered with people of very dubious character, people who are very selfish and who are either in the struggle or in the political space for their own personal gain. And so a lot of very good, amazing leaders, potential leaders, have simply, stayed quiet or removed themselves from the situation we find ourselves. Now, quickly, one way we can overcome the issue of unity is it's difficult, but we have to find a way to build trust. We have to find a way to start talking to all our people and build a strong team, maybe not with everybody, that will put their heads together and come up with a robust plan, a robust roadmap, that everybody will trust, everybody will have confidence in. And that way, it will bring together a good number of people to work around that roadmap. For example, Biafra Government in Exile has got a Biafra Charter, which is a roadmap on its own. They've got various other strategic documents, which are roadmaps, which I know that they're effectively trying to communicate and get people to coalesce around it. And so such initiatives, such institutions, and such foundations that have been laid, if we can get our people to coalesce around it, develop it, strengthen it, and work and take it as their own and run with it, it might give us a great opportunity, to unite behind an ideology that has a clear plan, a clear roadmap, a destination, how we can go from point A to point B. And hopefully, if that happens, we've got a chance. We've got a chance. And within that structure, I am confident that not even one, not two, not three, many brilliant leaders will emerge, that are very conscientious, that are very honest, humble, intelligent, and driven, and have total faith in the cause and total belief in the objective of Biafra being a free, independent nation. Because you've got to believe in that. You've got to really have a drive and believe in that and give your all for that cause. If you don't believe in that cause, it will be difficult for you to give your all to that cause. So I believe there'll be a lot of people who will see a strategy for that project, and excellent leaders will emerge from it. We don't have a military situation now, so we won't have a leader like Ojukwu, who is one of the best trained soldiers in warfare, in administration, and everything. We will not have that situation, because the struggle does not mean that we are preparing to fight another war. We're far from that. We're not going to fight another war. It's a war of intellect. It's a war of the brain. It's a war that will involve a lot of political maneuvering, international negotiations, and all that. And we need our best hands and our best brains, and we've got them in abundance. It's just creating that platform, that structure that will bring them all in. And I believe, brilliant and capable leaders will emerge from it.
Okay, excellent. Well, you sound very, very optimistic, and I look forward to seeing this happen. And, this is why we're having this conversation. And I hope people are listening, because to me, it sounds as if you're inviting people to join, in this cause, in this movement towards restoration. I want to go to Brother Tony to hear his own, take on this.
Yeah, I agree with Uday on one particular point. We must have the difficult conversations, collaboration, conversation, jaw. It doesn't make any sense when we're all heading in a direction and then we're not having regular critical conversation, interrogating the ideas, and then making sure that we come up with a strategy document that we all agree with, and pursue, go about in pursuit of our goal. So I agree with today that one of the difficulties we've had in recent times has been people working in silos, existing in silos. We need to get together. We need to have a conversation. We need to have difficult conversations. We need to interrogate the ideas and make sure that they are workable for us where we are now. Now, again, I agree with today that our erstwhile leader provided a unique kind of leadership at that time, which in part was military, but another aspect of it was intellectual, charismatic, and diplomatic. So he wasn't just a military leader, he was also charismatic, he applied diplomacy, he was very intellectual in talking to our people, mobilizing our people, getting our people to pursue an idea, the idea of Biafra. And so we can't take that from him, and we need to embrace that. It is that sort of quality that this generation of leaders need to embrace in pursuit of, as we go about Biafra, having critical conversations, coming together, and so on and so forth. He also said that, there was a military confrontation then, etc. And this time we don't necessarily have that. I'm not so sure. I think that there is a school of thought that says that the war of 1967 has not finished. And you can see evidence of that in all the killings that took place under the leadership of Buhari. In Lokbanta, in Anambra, lives of our youth wasted, bloodshed everywhere, not just in Biafra land, obviously, but also in Benue and other places. But of course, we're talking about Biafra land here. And so there's a school of thought that says that, the war is not over yet. And so as leaders, we need to understand this reality that not all wars are declared, there are undeclared wars. And so how do we protect our people? What do we do to protect our people? We have a responsibility to that. So, and every nation, every country, America has their CIA, Britain has their MI6, Russia has their FSB, every mature, sophisticated country have their secret service which they use to access information and also correct bad behavior. These are realities we need to embrace. At the moment, we don't control our territory, either politically or physically. These are things we need to pay attention to. For us to make progress, we need to be able to begin to look at how do we compel good behavior? How do we encourage good behavior from the people who claim to represent us in the National Assembly, in the political arena, in also in the cultural arena like Ohanaeze Ndigbo and the traditional rulers, etc. How do we compel good behavior? Because if you do not have a system, a method by which you compare good behavior, you're going to have people buying and selling your culture, your beliefs, your ideas, anyhow they like. And so the last thing I'll say in response to your question is the issue of end. What is our end? Our end is Biafra, our own country, our own country, our own nation, recognized by United Nations and so on. And so that's the end. So the next question now is, what is a strategy by which we can attain that end? Okay, and so that's a debate we need to have. What is a strategy that leads us to that end? Not something that we wish or dream or hope or, what I might call an academic idea, but what is the strategy that leads to that end, that helps us, gives us a chance to attain that end in the light of the opposition that we have? Every Biafran must have a clear-eyed appreciation of the opposition that we have. Who does not want Biafra to come? And how do you navigate those landmines? It is not just the Fulani, it is not the Hausas for certain, it is not Nigeria. There are entities, there are superpowers who do not want Biafra to emerge, clearly. We lost 3.5 million people. What did the world do for us? The fact that the world did nothing for us tells you they don't care. And then since then, they've continued to encourage, support, turn a blind eye to poor leadership. So we have major opposition that does not want Biafra to come about. We have to be clear-eyed about that and not be romantic about this, because they put on the facade of democracy, of nice and rule of law, etc. Because, you know, there's a whole lot going on underneath than just the facade that you see. So there are superpowers who do not want Biafra to come about. We have to be clear-eyed about that, and then we need to develop a plan and a strategy by which we can outwit them and help our people, help direct our people, lead our people in the way that, you know, we can go to attain our end. Of course, the detail of it we cannot explain, we cannot discuss here, but in summary, these are realities that we need to be aware of, and we need to be thinking critically about it, and discussing offline on how do we navigate that. Because, you know, we're in a, it's brain power. Again, I agree with my brother Ude. This is brain power, brain work. And brain work requires calmness, humility, and courage. And then we can give our people hope that, you know, there is the possibility that there is light at the end of the tunnel. But we need to be clear-eyed about these things. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, both of you, for really taking on this particular question. Both of you have raised quite a few areas to consider, to come back to, and hopefully we'll come back to these areas in the future, because we are not going to be able to talk about all of these things right now. But the one thing that I have heard from both of you is the idea of collaboration. You mentioned it, you know, Brother Ude also mentioned that, you know, collaboration he talks about building trust, you know, talking with our people, and then, you know, bringing other people in. Of course, bringing other people in is building trust. You know, it is also collaboration. And you have said that. And you also mentioned talking, you know, having regular conversations about these difficult issues. Part of the difficult conversation, let's be frank, part of the difficult conversation is coming under some kind of leadership. That is part of the difficult conversation. Part of the difficult conversation, as you've raised, is realizing that we cannot be fighting 10 different, you know, wars, and I'm putting wars in quotation marks, not necessarily actual wars, but you can't have very fragmented people, each person saying, I'm a leader, and not talking to the other people. Those are the issues that both of you have raised. You both talked about mobilizing our people and, you know, to pursue the idea of Biafra. It's an idea, but it's also larger than an idea. For many people, it is a reality. They know what it felt like years ago, 50 plus years ago. They know what it feels like today. So all of these things, you seem to have places where you agree completely. The question then, which you in many ways preempted, is how we get to this restoration. How do we achieve Biafra? But before we achieve Biafra, how do we achieve this singular purpose of collaborative working and understanding that we have a common cause, that we have a common purpose, that we should bind together, as opposed to working as if we were 10 different fingers? A fist is stronger than 10 fingers all separated. And right now, anyone watching would say there are 10 fingers separated, all jousting for the same thing. So I'm asking you two, who serve as amazing leaders of the various entities you represent, How do you propose that we get to this point of collaborative working together, understanding, having a conversation, and focused on a singular prize? I'm going to go with Brother Ude.
Okay, let me first of all support some of the points Bro Tony raised in his last submission. It's very critical for everyone to understand and this is one of the key major challenges, the forces that we face, especially international forces, and to call them out. So we've continued to call them out, and we will continue to call them out, especially the United Kingdom. You know, the colonial administration set up Nigeria to fail. And a lot of people who say that Nigeria is not a nation, it is a criminal enterprise, I agree with them. By all definition, in all ramifications, you know, from the time of the amalgamation and the reason why the British did what they did up until now, we are continuing to have engagements with them, with the British government, and they continue to let us know that they support the territorial integrity of Nigeria at independence, which is rubbish. They completely pretend that there are no indigenous nationalities that they met in 1804 when they arrived. And they forgot that it was them that ignored ethnic boundaries and tribal boundaries and amalgamated the North and the South in 1914. And it was them that said that the North and the South are like oil and water which cannot meet. And they knew ab initio that the nation, the country in quote, Nigeria is never a nation, cannot continue to exist and will not survive. And by every indices, Nigeria is a failed state. And we can see it happening in the last election, the way they select people, the violence, the rigging, the corruption, you know, the marginalization of our people. They look at what they're doing to our people in Lagos and various other places, the killing of Christians, and even the United States of America and all the other powers that looked the other way when 3.5 million, over 3.5 million Biafrans were slaughtered, and over 100,000 in the pogrom before the war. And they looked the other way because they are only interested in extracting the resources that is in Biafra land, making billions and billions of dollars out of the land and impoverishing the people, subjecting the people to its, you know, unexplainable, unimaginable dehumanization, destroying our environment. And so those powers, as we continue to push in diplomatic fashions, for them to have a change of heart and recognize the rights of indigenous people, the rights of indigenous people of Biafra to self-determination, and actually mean it, and actually call Nigeria out for all the atrocities that are committing against indigenous peoples, especially indigenous peoples of Biafra. And the second thing Bro Tony said, which I support, or which I agree with also, is the person of Ojukwu and his leadership, the charisma he had and his leadership qualities. But I just want to add also that Ojukwu as a person never believed in Nigeria, was a nationalist. And it was because of the killing of our people, the pogrom, the waves of pogroms in 1966. And even at that, when our people flee from northern Nigeria the first time, and he went to Aburi to reach an agreement with Gowon at the time, he was the same person that came back to our people and appealed to our people to go back. That is one Nigeria, they should go back, everything will be fine. And they went back and they were slaughtered again. And naturally, we are Democrats. Igbos, Biafrans are democratic, naturally. He was a military leader, a military governor in the East. But he decided to govern in a democratic fashion. He set up an assembly, a consultative assembly, made up of different types of people, intellectuals, businessmen, industrialists, traditional rulers, all across the land. They were made up of Igbos, Ijos, Ibibios, Ishekiris, Oron. Every part was represented, and he consulted. He was not obliged to do that. He was a military governor. He could govern by fiat, do whatever he likes, be a dictator. But he knew the values of Biafrans, of Igbo people, and the way authority flows from the villages and our communities to the village heads. And he knew that we are naturally democratic people. So he formed an assembly that he could consult with. And it was this assembly actually that forced him to declare Biafra, to bring Biafra out of Nigeria in order. People need to be clear about this. In order to preserve our race. Because the Nigerians were hell-bent on exterminating us. So it was a war of survival. For Nigerians committed genocide against Biafra because they wanted to completely exterminate a race. With the help of Britain, Russia, and many other foreign forces, they fought a very young, thriving nation. And in 3 years that Biafra existed, they did everything. Manufactured their vehicles, refined their petroleum, guided their missiles, built their own missiles, guided it, did everything. Our scientists were brilliant, the best in the world. And the world were like, we can't have another Israel on our hands. So Biafra was, and Biafra will be again. And what we cannot do, though, is to be irresponsible, to expose our people to another ill-prepared confrontation and allow our people to be slaughtered again by the Nigerian security forces, which they're already doing. The army, you just have to look at Operation Python Dance that nearly killed Nnamdi Kanu. Many were slaughtered in Umuahia that day. Look at what happened in Obigbo. Thousands of our people are still held in different military facilities, DSS facilities, without trial. And of course, we know that Nnamdi was kidnapped and is still held, even after courts found there was nothing, no charges against him. He should be a free man. And he's still being held against court orders. And Nigeria, having broken international protocols to extraordinarily rendition him from Kenya. Breaking every law. And Britain, whose citizen Nnamdi Kanu is, have kept quiet. We've written to the British Prime Minister, we've written to the British Foreign Office over and over again for Kanu to be released. And they've chosen to do nothing. So quickly coming back to the way we will collaborate. We are a people, we are a wonderful people. And the world knows this. They know what we can be. Eastern Nigeria, Biafra land, between 1958 and 1964, was the fastest growing economy, faster than Malaysia, faster than South Korea, faster than all the Asia Tiger nations. We were exporting, and under Michael Okpala, Eastern Nigeria, Biafra land was growing, was developing faster than the Asian Tiger nations until 1966, when all the coups and counter coups and all the troubles stopped the development in their track. And up till today, they consciously decided that Eastern Nigeria, Biafra land, will not develop, even after the war. No matter what you had in the bank before the war, you only got £20. And just like the phoenix, from the ashes, Biafra rose again. Look at Eastern, the current Eastern Nigeria, Biafra land now, built up again by the sweat and blood of our people, without the help of federal government. And look at what they are doing consciously to perpetually keep us down. No seaports, no rail links, no proper functioning international airports in our territory. And Brotoni makes a good point. Our strategy must include a robust, covert means through which we will gain significant control of parts or all of our territory. That discussion, that plan must be done, not in the open, but in a very discreet and very intelligent manner. We must come up with strategies through which we must control our territory. And if we do, we will slowly put in place structures and institutions that will mean that when the time comes, and I pray to God that that will be soon, that the opportunity comes for us to make a unilateral declaration. If negotiations fail, then we will be ready. We will be ready to make that declaration, and we will be ready to pull Biafra out of Nigeria with minimal loss of lives. Because Biafrans have made ultimate sacrifice. Millions of lives have been lost during the pogrom, during the war, and up till today. In the Fulanization agenda, the Fulani herdsmen that have been terrorists that have been unleashed on our farmers, on our farms, on our communities. You can see what happened in Ehemufu. And nobody is arrested. Churches destroyed, communities displaced and destroyed, hundreds of lives lost in attacks. The federal government under Buhari kept quiet because they are the chief sponsors of those terrorists that they've unleashed on Biafra land as part of their Islamization agenda. And we must not let that happen. And this is the reason why everyone listening today, everyone who cares about Biafra and our survival must reach out for this collaboration, must work together, because the stakes are too high.
Okay. The stakes are too high. You are correct. All right. Let's go to Brother Tony and hear what he has to say too.
There is a saying by Sun Tzu which says, if you know your enemy and yourself, you will need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know your enemy and yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you do not know your enemy. If you know yourself but do not know your enemy, for every victory you suffer defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor thyself, you will succumb to every battle. What is the point? The point is, Ndi Igbo, Biafrans, we must take the time, calm down, and identify the enemy. We know ourselves, we know who we are. We know who we are, we know what we can do. Our history is full of that. But we have to know the enemy, and we have to know why the enemy is doing what he's doing, and we have to know how the enemy has been doing this in time past and in other places. There's a bit of mathematics involved in this, and there's a bit of philosophy involved in that. So and that's where the mental work that Ude talks about kicks in. It is not by the beating of the chest or by the screaming and shouting. And this is where I depart from Nnamdi Kanu. Biafra or nothing is not a strategy. we have to identify the enemy and do comprehensive work on the enemy so that we have an understanding of the enemy and therefore know how to outwit the enemy and how to get the solution that we want. It is brain work. It is mental work. It is not the beating of the chest. It is not the screaming on microphones. It is not in the shouting and screaming from Finland or all over the place or threatening our people, threatening your own people. It is not by the doing of that. There's no intelligence behind that. It is brain work. It is mental work. It is mathematics. Understanding that 2 plus 3 must give you 5, and therefore 5 minus 2 will give you 3, and 5 minus 3 will give you 2. We'll have to do the brain work. Who does not want Biafra? Who created the entity called Nigeria? Why did they create it? Southern Protectorate, Northern Protectorate, and you brought them together into a forced marriage, a forced union. A marriage of convenience for who? Not for the people, but for thyself, United Kingdom, Britain. And so that's just the beginning of the conversation. It is not only in Nigeria that they've done this. You see their fingerprint in Australia, in New Zealand, in India, in Pakistan, in Canada, the rest of Africa, the Berlin Conference, the carving up of Africa. You see their fingerprint in the United States until 1776 and how the Americans got their freedom. And so we have to have that understanding. If we have that understanding, like the quotation by Sun Tzu says, if you know your enemy and yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. We know ourselves, but I'm not convinced our people have a deep understanding of who the enemy is and why he's doing what he's doing, and therefore how to engage with the enemy. If you know yourself but not the enemy, for every victory gained, you will also suffer a defeat. If you know neither the enemy nor thyself, you succumb to every in every battle. 1999 Constitution. Biafra War was 1967 to 1970. 1999 Constitution. When was that? That's just a few years down the road. If we had done the mental work, the leaders of the past, if they had done the mental work, how did we fall into the trap of 1999 Constitution, which shackles our hands and our legs and steals our resources and attempts to enslave us? We have to do the mental work. We have to put ego aside. And this has been, my place of rest with fellow Biafrans in this struggle. We need to pack your ego and understand that we're dealing with a formidable enemy. We're wrestling with a formidable enemy who has outwitted India, Pakistan, Canada, many countries. And so humility becomes necessary, saying that I might not have all the answers. Therefore, I need to listen to Chike. I need to listen to Ndoka. I need to make sure I'm hearing, my sisters in the struggle. I'm hearing them, understanding what they say, and then I can now ask questions and say, look, how do we navigate this? We've got to pack our ego because we're all in this mess, which began from the days of our fathers to today. This is a 50-year struggle, 50-year campaign for which we, as a civilization, have not been able to unravel the conundrum to give our people hope and to give our people confidence Ndị were harassed in Ugwu Hausa. They are harassed in Lagos recently. They are harassed at home, in their own home, by Buhari government, by their own brother who's enforcing sit at home, compulsory sit at home. And I don't know what logic there is back of that. There are people suffering because I'm beating my chest and saying, oh, I am the second coming. I saw someone when the idea how to get Biafra and all of that nonsense. And so we have to have an appreciation that we're dealing with a major battle here, a major struggle. And you got to eat the elephant one bite at a time, and you got to, so that we make progress. At the minimum by now, we ought to have control of our territory. We ought to have control of our territory. We ought to have control of the people who are representing us. Behavior correction mechanism. We ought to have a system by which we correct bad behavior, we moderate behavior, bad behavior. We cannot allow our brothers to become agents of the enemy and to govern us, lead our people, lead our nation. Meanwhile, they are agents of the enemy. It's nonsensical. And we can't do that alone. I cannot do it by myself. 1,000 brothers cannot do individually, but collectively, when the leaders who have sufficient humility and courage come together and begin to listen to each other. This is what they did in Philadelphia. 1776, 56 men. This great United States that we have today was the decision of 56 men who locked themselves up in a conference and said, no taxation without representation. This cannot continue. And so what do we do? And so they had to do the back and forth, agree to disagree and quarrel. Eventually they came to a point where they can agree that these nations ought to be free and make that declaration that we hold this truth to be self-evident that all men were created equal and endowed by the Maker certain inalienable rights, among which is life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. These men had to pack their ego to listen to each other, to understand that they were facing the world's first superpower, which is Great Britain at that point in time. And so how do we obtain victory? They had to pack their ego one side. Nothing infuriates me more than when I meet brothers in the struggle who refuse to come to a meeting where we can have a conversation. I'll listen to you, listen to me, and we interrogate the ideas, and then we'll now say, okay, it doesn't matter if the best idea comes from Chike. It doesn't matter if it comes from Obi. It doesn't matter. Because we're talking about a people, 70 million people and generations. We're all in our 50s and 60s. Our children, our children's children, generations, our father's generation had their mess. They made their mess, but now we can't keep blaming them. The responsibility is now for me and you and you and you, for all of us who are now men and women in their mature years, to come together and fashion out a way that we can get this thing done. So nothing infuriates me more than, that sort of nonsensical idea, beating of the chest and saying my way or the highway, I'm the only one, I'm the only one. If you're the only one, why are we still in this contraption called Nigeria? You would have gotten us Biafra 50 years ago. For the past 50 years, we're still there.
That's a good question.
Yeah.
That is a very good question.
Yeah.
What I'd like us to do, both of you have raised quite a number of areas that we can look at. Again, this is just the beginning of the conversation, and I hope that we'll do, we'll have more conversations like this. I want you to think about this during the short break we'll take. And then, because you talk about knowing the enemy, both of you have identified international entities, Britain, the United States, as, responsible for the mess we have. Of course, colonization ended, theoretically, perhaps on paper, but the structures remain there. And you've talked about the enemy outside. Yes, externally, you've got the international entities. But what about the enemy within? And Tony, you seem to come to that a little bit towards, the end of your piece here, where you're pointing at these brothers who claim to be quote unquote leaders, but who are also causing harm to our own people. And the question then, of course, that I want both of you to think about, hopefully we'll talk about this in the next, the second half of this, it's the extent to which our own people, the very people at home, let's say the masses, looking at this, understand that the enemy is also amongst them. And they're not just simply these people who claim to be leaders outside, the boundaries of Biafra or Nigeria, outside, in the diaspora, who are causing harm. But they're also that, we also have to acknowledge that we're being governed, our people are being governed by people who are just simply extensions of the Nigerian oligarchy, that is doing them harm. We cannot forget about those governors. We can't forget about those representatives. And you've mentioned these. And you've talked about even Ohaneze here. What's the responsibility of these particular, even cultural groups that proclaim themselves leaders at a certain point, but then do not provide the kind of leadership that both of you are talking about here? So for me, therefore, the big question is, how do we get our own people to come to this understanding that they actually have power? I am not talking about these sycophants or false leaders. I am talking about the ordinary people that are facing the threats, the horror. How do we get them? Because Ude talks about mobilizing our people. You, Tony, you've talked about that in a different way. How do we get to the point where we get our people to understand that power actually is in their hands and that they do have the power to demand what you're saying, accountability, responsibility, to say we are not going to put up with this nonsense and push the change? You're right. It's not just going to be you, Tony. It can't be just you, Ude. So somehow, both of you are going to have to work together, but you also have to figure out a way of getting the masses, the ordinary people who are the ones suffering, to the point where they insist that they cannot take this nonsense anymore. So I want you to think about this. We're going to take a short break, just a few minutes, so you can catch your breath, and then we'll come back. Okay, this is BCB, and this is Rosama, and I am in conversation with my two wonderful brothers who are leaders in the Biafra struggle, Tony Nwisi and Ude Christian Iwagu. We will take a short break and come back. We are back. This is Rosama, and this is BCB. I am in conversation with two leaders of the Biafra Restoration Project, Tony Nwisi and Ude Christian Iwagu. Before we took this short break, I had given them a very large, homework assignment to do. But in the interest of time, and given that, we are in 3 different locations, and I want to make sure that our brothers get some rest, I'm going to ask them for a final word, at least for this segment. We will come back to this conversation at another time. They'll take the time, therefore, to think about the question that I posed to them. So let's start with Tony. So given everything that you have said here, what final words do you have for our people in terms of where we're going, in terms of perhaps a vision that you have?
Rose, I thank you so very much for facilitating tonight's conversation. And it's a testament to your leadership and your example that you've been able to make this happen. And so I celebrate you and I pay tribute to you. In addition, I pay tribute to my brother Ode Iwagu for his leadership and his example over the years and the team that he runs in London and around the world. And I thank you. I thank you, Ode, for being in this conversation, because your presence here and your contributions has, enlightened our audience and contributed to the richness of this conversation. So I celebrate you, sir. To our people around the world, Ndibo, all over the world where we are, I will say that Biafra belongs to all of us. The responsibility for the attainment of freedom for our people and our children's children lies with me and you. We are the adults in the room. If you're 21 and above and you're a Biafran, you are a leader. You have a voice and you have a sphere of influence. Join the conversation. By all means, join the conversation. Connect with me, connect with Ode, connect with other leaders. Bring your talent, your treasure, all your time to this noble work. We have to fight for our future. All people around the world, the English fought for their future. They had an English Revolution. The Americans fought their future. For their future, they had the American Revolution, the Great Britain. They succeeded. The French had the Revolution. They fought for their future. So what the British are enjoying today, what the Brits are enjoying today, the Americans are enjoying the liberty, the quality of life. The French, what they're enjoying today is the direct result of the resolve of their fathers and their mothers generations ago. And so if you're 21 and above, you're a Biafran, you are a leader. Join the conversation, join an organization, bring your leadership to bear. We need your ideas, we need your treasure, we need your time, we need to work together. And finally, for our brothers who are in the struggle, who are active in the struggle, please, Biko, I beg of you, you do not have a monopoly of knowledge, nor do you have a monopoly of wisdom. Let's work together, let's discuss, let's debate, let's come up with good ideas, and let's work together towards the freedom of our people. I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you today, and I'm grateful to you, Rose, for making this happen, and my brother Ode for making this an exciting evening for all of us tonight. Thank you so very much, Tony Wese.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you for your gratitude, and thank you for your willingness to, to join us. I know that you are very busy. So let me let our brother Ode have his final say, and then we'll close this program.
Thank you very much again, and let me thank profoundly Brother Tony Wese for joining us this evening, and for his very passionate and wonderful submissions and ideas, and making that call to all our people. It's very pertinent, it's very important that if you're listening today, you heed to that call. You bring everything that you have in sincerity and in truth, because there is joy in nation building, and it is our responsibility, every adult, even children. During the war, there were children in the Biafran soldier, in the Biafran army. We are all responsible for restoring our nation, for liberating ourselves, for making sure that we get to that position that God has destined for us to reach as a people. We are not meant to be slaves. And finally, for the enemies within, it is time for you to think again. The corrupt political class who are benefiting on the blood of millions of Biafrans, the time for you to change is now. Because it's going to be too late very soon. And as I said at the beginning, we are not doing anything wrong. We are exercising a legal right. We are exercising a God-given right, a right to freedom and liberty, a right to self-determination. So please, and there are pathways through which we can do this without exposing ourselves and our people to unnecessary harm. It's often said that if you want peace, you must prepare for war. We have chosen to go through this path through diplomatic and democratic means. A call for referendum is not a call for war. Biafrans must be allowed to have a referendum for our people to decide for themselves how they want to be governed, where they want to belong, who they want to associate with. These are rights that are internationally recognized. And so we are not asking for war, we are asking to be given the vote. The United Kingdom had the vote and they voted to leave the European Union. The South Sudan people had the vote and they voted to be a separate nation. And it's happened in various other places. And we can leave Nigeria and become a great nation in peace. And so we need everybody to come together to understand this, that we can do this. And I know that as you listen, that you will be ready to start to make your own contribution. Let us put every ego aside, like my brother Tony said, and work as a unit and achieve our goal. Thank you very much, and God bless you. And may God bless our nation, Biafra.
Thank you very much, both of you, for this exceptional evening. It's actually the beginning of collaborative work, having the two of you here. I also honor both of you. I honor you, Tony. I honor you, Brother Christian Ude. You're my brothers in the struggle and in culture and in the belief that one day, our homeland will be free, shall be free. And I hope that our people have this belief. You're both correct. We cannot do this alone. Nobody can do this alone. Ojukwu did not work alone. All those people citing him, you have to read history to understand that he did not work alone. He worked a lot in collaboration. He was humble. No leader can be a true leader if you're not humble, if you're not willing to listen, if you're not willing to set aside your ego, if you're not willing to hear other voices or let other people talk, you are not a true leader. If you're looking for historical figures who are true leaders, look at most recently, Nelson Mandela. He suffered for the sake of one thing, the liberation of his people. 28 years in prison for the purpose of one thing, the liberation of his people. This struggle, this work to restore Biafra is not an economic enterprise. It is not for money making. It's not for ego stroking. It is not for bragging. And as Tony said, it is not for loud voices. If that's the case, we can all go get ogene or udu and start drumming and pounding. So I hope our people are listening. There are models, a lot of models to look at in terms of our history. And our history provides us tremendous examples of what it means to be a focused people. What do you want? Do you want to remain enslaved in perpetuity into generations and generations? If we don't come together and work together, that is going to happen because the Fulanese will not stop. And it's not just going to be the Fulanese. Other people, you will become completely displaced. So I leave you this evening with this conversation, and I hope you listen to it with kindness. If you have questions, again, send us an email. Our email address is on our Facebook, or visit us on Facebook. Leave a message there. This is for Biafra, for our people. I am Rose Ama, and this is BCB, the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra. Thank you for being with us this evening. Peace. Thank you for listening to us today. Join us next time for news, cultural, and educational programs. This is the Broadcasting Corporation of Biafra, BCB.